Hello everyone, this is Grill Chess channel and this is a new video, and this video will be about Norway Chess 2024 tournament where such strong players as Magnus Carlsen, Fabiano Caruana, Hikaru Nakamura, Liren, Alireza Firouzja, and Praggnanandhaa competed for the first place. A little spoiler, but you probably already know it. Magnus won the tournament again. Nothing special, but we'll try to find out who made the most dramatic mistakes, who played very well, what was this mistakes about, and we'll try to find out how was it better to play, because it could really impact on the result of the game. And top number 5 is the game Fabiano Caruana against Magnus Carlsen. This was a classical game because after every round, if the game was over in a draw, there was Armageddon. This game finished without it, and it opens our list on the top number 5. Actually, like going a little bit in the future, Fabiano wasn't that great and bright in end games in this tournament, and this was one of the games why. The whole game Magnus pressured, position was super dry, but he managed to squeeze some activity out of nowhere, and here we are. At this moment, Caruana had 27 seconds on the clock, and keep in mind that increment was only 10 seconds. It's a pretty tough spot, but Magnus also didn't have a lot of time. It was 1 minute, but still, for Magnus, it's way easier to play. Right now, what's the main problem? The main problem that pawn is about to promote, plus the king can be cooked, because let's say there is a threat of queen d1, queen g1, and the king will be mated. So house is on fire. We need to act very aggressively unless we want to be mated. What did Caruana do? He played king h2, which kind of hard to explain. I know this is the last move you would consider it here, because at 3-2 he just say, okay, I resign, I don't know what to do. Queen f4 is the threat, and then queen c1, queen g1, delivering the mate to the king on h2. Or maybe e1 is also a threat, which is also hard to reflect. There is no check, nothing like that. What did Fabiano think about? I have no idea. What was the only option, and like many players would play it just by hand, it's queen a2, because it's a check, we will not get mated, which already is good news. Plus our opponent needs to react somehow. Probably 2 would be the best try, hoping to promote, threaten mate, but then we need to keep on checking. And after a queen check, king can try to hide from checks, or go here where we will find a different angle. I don't know, maybe queen b3, maybe somewhere else. And after queen e1, probably, there are plenty of moves, especially engine is good at it, finding all resources. But let's say after queen f5, we retain many opportunities for future checks, and the position is holdable. Yeah, there is a chance to lose it. Okay, nobody is an engine, unless you're a cheater. But it's like better than nothing, better than giving up the game in one move. And we go to the top number 4, and this is a game Praggnanandhaa versus Ding. It's not the last appearance of the Ding in this list, and yeah, let's say last tournaments of Chinese Grandmaster weren't great, even though right now he's counted like a world champion and he'll play a match against Gukesh. His performance isn't world championship kind, yeah, because let's say Magnus destroy everybody tournament after tournament, no matter it's classic, rapid, blitz, and in always, I'm not so sure, but he even maybe said that he didn't want to score the last place and it was his goal, but maybe I'm mistaken, don't want to lie right here, I just seem like read it somewhere. But yeah, he didn't succeed in it. Last place was his, and this was Armageddon game again against Praggnanandhaa. Position is perfect. Prag trying to create some pressure. He's down the pawn. He's hoping for some lucky punch. Try to mate his opponent, and Ding almost automatically played Rook D G8, which many of you would play. Totally reasonable. Looks like king hello, we will mate you. It's like gonna be easy mate, but everything has changed after knight df3 and moved like, okay, knight df3 and what? Like, okay, knight defended, bishop attacked, let's move it somewhere. But if we move it, then boom, just a bomb. drops right here, rook d7. And again, you probably do not understand what the hell are you talking about. I'm just taking the rook. But it calls an overload. Knight couldn't control and d7 square and h7, and it's mate. And if, for example, queen tries to run away, then knight f7, and I mean, mate is about to come. And this is a problem, so bishop is in a big trouble, and that's what happened. The game went on with h6, rook takes, and that's it. Dean resigned. Yeah, very logical move, like in the previous example. Caruana played rather, I mean, not sensible. Right here, move looking totally fine. But what was better to do? Probably bishop b4 sounds good, because mate is not working, kicking away the rook. You can play solid like b5 because there is a pin and knight cannot move. Engine also recommends e5, which goes to the mess, but better not to escalate things when you're up material. You don't want to mess up the position too much. So yeah, many options. Bishop b4 is not the only one. He could just defend if he's afraid of some mate. It's like hard to mess up, but rook g8 temptation was too high, and unfortunately it led to mistake, and we close this Armageddon. Top number 3, so we're pretty quickly approaching our bronze medalist, and again Caruana right here. Comes, as I said before, his endgames weren't great in this tournament, and this is a game against Prague. Prague 2 games in a row, and 2 times he crushes. A really good youngster, and in the tournament he played pretty well, even won Magnus Carlsen. This game was without huge mistakes, so it's not in the list, but he was the only one who brought him down in the classical chess. So, 2-on-1, maybe you think like it's an extra pawn, therefore it's easily winning. No, it's like very easy. I mean, if black managed to trade these 2 pawns, then give up the knight for the pawn, knight cannot mate alone with the king, even 2 knights cannot mate bare king without outside help. And then game was drawish, and Caruana had like 19 minutes at this point, when Prague only had 2.5. So it was like super easy draw for such a professional, and everything was fine. But right here, after a like quite long thinking, 4 minutes, Caruana plays 91, not seeing h5 move, which the same as offering a draw. You might say, okay, what is it? I would like taking a pawn. What's the problem? But then after king g5, king h5. Pawn is going down, and it's just a matter of time when we sacrifice our knight for the pawn, and it will be a draw. And this was not really a big mistake. Yeah, he didn't notice this idea, which was quite easy draw, but I mean, this was just some history before the main mistake happened. Right here, they moved. Prague tried to push the pawn. He's not Russian because knight can take the pawn over here, and slowly he's improving. King e6, still position looks fine. Knight e2, knight g8, knight d4, and this was the moment of the game. Caruana down to 7 minutes, 7:57 to be precise, and I mean, again, nothing that scary. He played king f6, which was a terrible mistake, because after knight f5 it turned out that knight h6 is a very serious threat. And if you go king g6 trying to protect this pawn, okay, by the way, why is it serious threat? Because if we take, g5 takes here, we have a passed pawn, the king in front of the pawn, we get an opposition, we get to the key square, position will be winning in the end. So after some king g6, we can play king e5, and it's almost a Zugzwang because knight can barely move because of different checks, and again knight h6 threat, after knight f6 coming with g5 after, and that's it. He played king e6, king d4, he was forced to go back, and after knight h6 right now he was not allowed to take because of this idea, and let me show you how this all looks. Like this, like this, like this. We're about to promote our pawn really soon, so king f8 is forced. We get the position, then outflank, and then we promote. And instead, what Caruana could do right here in this position is not going to f6, where after knight f5 position is losing, but instead go to f7. Because let's say if we go knight f5 right now, there is a brilliant check knight f6, targeting already the pawn of white. King will be forced to move, and after king g6 it's just a draw. So I don't know, Caruana snapped. I don't know what happened. He was definitely capable of drawing this game 2 times at least, and I don't know, not the greatest tournament by Fabiano, former number 2, because as I understand right now Nakamura occupied this spot. And number 2, Firouzja and his struggle with endgames. Funny story about it. 4 years before this tournament, there was Norway Chess 2020, where Alireza Firouzja, against the very same Magnus Carlsen, managed to lose a drawish pawn in game. He was down a pawn, but he had an opposition, and he made a quite childish mistake and lost. And for years after, nothing much changed, because right here Magnus strikes again. Uh, okay, right now position was drawish. It's a rook in game, 3 versus 2 on one flank, pretty easy to hold. Rook cuts off the king, and if Alireza just waited, maybe attacked the pawn, he had many options how to stay alive. First, he let in the king come closer, which was not mandatory. King is approaching and approaching, and right now he's still controlling the king. King still cannot get inside. He could wait somehow, he could play king g8, let's say, but he decided, okay, it's a pawn, let's take it. But activity matters way more in such position. He goes rook a4, baiting Magnus to take king f6 in order to be able to give him a check, cut off his king, and hold the draw. Instead, Magnus being tricky, he plays rook d7, saying that after check I will cover it with the rook, and if let's say you take, I take back, and then slowly I push you away, eat all your pawns, promote, and win. Alireza decided to wait, Magnus takes, and then after rook d6, maybe for you it wouldn't be obvious, and like, okay, we have a choice, or to trade rooks and be down a pawn, or to move our rook and lose a pawn on h6. Many of you probably would take, and Firouzja did, but actually it's a huge mistake. Because after rook takes, king takes, this is the position which seems like, okay, we down a pawn, and if let's say we remove these 2 pawns, it would be a draw because of opposition rule. It's pretty easy to handle this. But we have these pawns on the board, and here is an interesting situation, because we cannot go up to e6, because then it would be a draw because of opposition. We cannot go to f5 because after king f7, king screams you shall not pass. It's not possible. But there is a very famous trick in chess and opponent games, in all opening books, including the greatest of all time, Dvoretsky Endgame Manual. There is a rule of triangle. The point is that if you want to pass the right of the move to your opponent to gain something like to win a position or so, you can do a triangle. So you want to end up in 3 moves on the same spot, when your opponent will end up on his current spot in 2 moves. Then he will be forced to play, and if he plays, let's say, king f7, we will get inside, and if he plays here, we will have an opposition. So that's what Magnus did. He played king f4. Playing king f7 can be lethal. So king e8, king e4, and Firouzja resigned. You might ask why, but after king f5 here, he has nothing to do, because or our king gets to the opponent, we win the game, or he waits, but then opposition is on our side. The only thing, please do not promote the queen. Please, I beg you, because then there will be a stalemate. But if you promote the rook, you win easily. If you play king f6 intermediately to promote the queen later with the check, it also would be winning. So yeah, this is it. And what Firouzja should have done, position wasn't lost, he could go right here, rook b1, let's say, and after king f6, king here, even though position hard to hold, it should be enough. And if let's say rook h6, being 2 pawns down, if we play king g7 and not go to the corner like Kramnik did against Hospem in their games, it was a very similar endgame. If you stay in the center, it should be enough to win. Also, by the way, in the same book, Dvoretsky Manual, this game is present. And that's how Firouzja again fails in the pawn and games. Hope this time it will be a good lesson for him to read this book, study endgames more, because many players, I mean, all GMs, I'm pretty sure, know this standard position. I know it, I just, my students, I assume, also remember it after a while thought. So yeah, good lesson for future, I guess, for French GM. And the last game is like a cherry on top of this very tasty cake. Again, ding, and this is fail of the year, I would say, because it was a classical game, and you probably all seen this, and I had no right not to place it on the top number one. Position of Magnus is better. Material is equal, but he has a bishop pair and he's attacking. Magnus played rook e4. What does it mean? Either we attack the pawn or we want to deliver the mate. And I'm pretty sure everybody thinks that, okay, mate is about to come, rook h4 somewhere is the threat. And what many of you would do, probably like we need to, I mean, be ready, use a prophylaxis, defend, play h6. Yeah, it creates a hole, but it's not the end of the world. And even if we lose a pawn, our knight will get some activity. We have some dark squares control, and we can live with that. Plus the pawn on d3 will be weak because rook will be forced to defend it. Instead, Dean decides, let's go for activity, rook b2. Right now, if he takes on d4, boom, rook h2, and I create a fork, win the queen, and that's it. And he says, like, okay, you play rook h4, I then play h6. But, again, when your opponent plays some move, try to understand what he wants, especially keep in mind what forced option does he have. It's like checks, captures, attacks. Because if you can see the checks, captures, and attacks, you can minimize the amount of blunders and make the right decision. And how many checks does white have in this position? That's the question what Dink should have asked himself. Of course, he has a queen h7. You can say maybe it's insane, like why do we wanna give up our queen? But then we have another check, rook h4, and look at this king. He's surrounded. Just that's it. Game is over. This is mate. And after queen h7, Dink resigned. Actually, we have a video on our channel about this moment with an analysis from my friend Vladimir, how it happened. But yeah, this is like really outstanding. Everything happens, but yeah, Dean was definitely not in his best prime shape because blundering mate in 2, such a quite obvious one, is not what world champion should do. So please leave your comments what you think. Maybe I have missed what other mistakes were remarkable in your opinion. Who do you think deserved top one? Who was you impressed the most during the tournament? Magnus Carlsen, or let's say Praggnanandhaa, or somebody else? What do you think about the tournament in general, about the format? And some like and subscribe would be appreciated, because then we'll have motivation to keep posting video, entertain you, teach you, and so on. Have a nice day. Bye.